Hello, friend. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm going to talk about something a little more serious. It's the MeToo movement. When that first came out a few years ago, I had such a feeling of relief for women who are victims of that. I was just so happy to see that it turned into a huge movement. It's happened to me over 45 years ago. People, especially men, or especially women who've never experienced anything like that, you don't really understand what it does to a woman deep down inside, her worth, her value. It's pretty traumatizing, and it has stayed with me for many years because I felt helpless and I didn't have any allies. Even my good friends didn't support me. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I've had a lot of jobs in my life, many jobs. I've worked with a lot of different people. When I was 20, I worked at this company for a couple of years, and there was an opportunity, a promotion. There were two different ones. It's basically the same job. And so I went ahead and applied for both because I wasn't sure if I would even get any of them. So if I at least applied for both, maybe I stood a chance to get one of those jobs, and it meant a raise, and it was just a great opportunity to move up in the company. The two men, I really liked the one man. We had a really nice rapport. He was older. It's funny that I say older because I was 20 and he was probably in his 40s. And the other gentleman was younger. He was probably in his mid-30s. And his name was Steve. I really wanted to work for Daryl, but I applied for both. And so I interviewed for the two positions, and they both wanted to hire me, which I was really flattered. However, Steve had more seniority, so he got to pick. And I wish that I would have just put my foot down and just said, no, I want to work for Daryl, or not even apply for Steve. I didn't know him very well, but I just had this feeling about him. I can't put it into words. I just had this feeling about him. And so I started working for him, and at the beginning it was fine. You know, everybody liked him. And I thought he was great. And then eventually he started hitting on me and asking me out. And I kept telling him, you're my boss. I don't think it's ethical for me to work with you. And he had such a huge ego, and he didn't like being turned down. So he used his position as my boss to make my life miserable. And he still kept asking me out. And he was dating another woman there in another department, and he would tell me all these stories about him having this casual sexual relationship with her, but that she was never going to be his girlfriend, and that she was very jealous of me because she thinks that you and I are seeing each other. I would ask him, well, did you set her straight? Did you tell her that we have never went on a date together? We don't see each other? He's like, no. And he was really smug about it. So he enjoyed the power trip of making this other woman go a little crazy because he made her feel like we were seeing each other. And then he made me feel a little uneasy because she didn't treat me very well. And it's because of him that she didn't treat me very well. He would do little things to make it seem like we were seeing each other. For example, it was my review, and he had other women working for him. It was my review, and I was the only one that he took out for dinner. Well, he told me, I'm taking you out to dinner and I'll give you your review at dinner. And I said, no, I don't think that's appropriate. You're not taking anybody else out to dinner. And he said, no, I'm taking you out to dinner. If you want your review, you have to go out to dinner with me. And I felt really uncomfortable about that. The next day or two, this woman who worked for me, She started this rumor that she was outside and she saw us go off. And she said that, and back then there weren't the cars with the things in the middle, it was all one seat. And she was telling everyone, oh, I saw them, and she was all scooshed up next to him, and they looked like a couple, and she just made up this story that we were all cuddly in this car. And I found out from some friends of mine there that she was spreading this rumor, and I was really upset because I couldn't even stand Steve. I didn't even want to go out to dinner with him. I didn't trust him. So I took her aside and I confronted her, and I told her that he's making my life miserable. You have no idea. He's been hitting on me. He won't take no for an answer. He just does all kinds of little things just to make my life miserable because his ego, his weak ego, just couldn't handle it. I was very emotional when I was talking to her, and she could tell that, yeah, I did something really bad, and she felt really bad. And I basically told her that you shouldn't spread rumors like that because you don't know how much you're hurting a person. And now everyone thinks that, oh, I got my job because I screwed the boss. That was the rumor. And even my own friends who really knew me, that knew the truth, I had two best friends there that I worked at other companies, and we just kind of followed each other from job to job. Even they knew the truth. They knew I couldn't stand him, but they were very chummy with him right in front of me, just really chummy. They just thought, oh, he's just such a nice guy. Well, maybe he's a nice guy, but he's an asshole too. He's a predator, and he's hurting me. So at the company I worked for, about once a month or so, the president of the company would invite, 6 or 8 people out to dinner. He would do that. It was really a great company to work for, but it was the 80s. I happened to be one of the people that was selected to go out to dinner, and he always had his head of HR with him. So it would be him and this woman who was the head of HR. And we happened to sit next to each other, and we were talking, and we had a really good rapport, and I felt really comfortable with her. And I thought she would, head of HR, she would be a little cold, but she was actually pretty wonderful. And she gave me her card, and she wrote down her personal number, and she told me, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call me. So this situation, this harassment, continued almost every single day. We would pass each other. We worked on an assembly line, and it was very long, and sometimes we would pass each other, and he would always play these games with me, and he would pass me by and he would whisper to me, frigid, and then kind of chuckle and walk off. And then I'd see him again, and we'd pass each other, frigid, and chuckle and walk off. He just played a lot of mind games with me and just really made me feel miserable, and I just hated working for him. And I felt like I had no one, because even my best friends there, if Steve was nice to them, they would just chuckle and have such a good time with him, not even thinking about me. Women did not support each other back then. They really didn't. A lot of people spread rumors that weren't true, and I felt miserable and alone. So when I met this HR woman, I can't even remember her name, I decided that I couldn't take it anymore. I called her up and asked if I could talk to her. And so we got together, and I told her what was going on. And so she had a conversation with my boss. And then she came back to me and talked to me, and she said that he denied everything. And he said that you're such a good employee, and he really respects you, and you're doing a great job, but that he denied everything. And at that time, HR, 45 years ago, their hands were tied, especially when it came to women. I also talked to his boss, and I went to see his boss. I told him what was going on. After I was finished, he pulled out his wallet. He took out a $100 bill. He threw it on his desk, and he said, "Do you want to meet me for drinks later?" I think that was his way of saying, fuck you. You don't complain about any of my men. You're just nothing. You're just a woman. That's how I interpreted it. And of course I didn't take the money. I was so offended and felt even worse. I walked out of his office and I felt helpless, completely helpless. I had no allies. And really the HR woman, she really couldn't do much. But she did tell me, if he's harassing you, just give me a call. One day he was harassing me quite a bit. And he treated me even worse, especially after I talked to the HR woman, that I put him in that position. So he was even worse to me. One day, I can't exactly remember what he was doing. And I said, okay. She told me to call her whenever he was harassing me. So I called her, and in the middle of the conversation, I can see him walking with this angry face. And he walked into the office and he put his finger on the receiver and hung up my call. I talked to her later and I told her what happened. But again, there was nothing she can do because women were not taken seriously 45 years ago. That's why I'm so happy that finally there's this movement, the MeToo movement. And now HR is doing something about it. They do take it seriously. And that's pretty much all I want to say, that I'm just happy about this movement that protects women. You know, I was 20 back then. And it was really hard. So the men out there, I want you to realize how difficult it is emotionally. And the women, we have to stick together. We can't just, oh, he's so nice to me. You can't have that attitude, because even though someone might be nice to you, they could be making someone's life miserable, which he did. And I did see him this is when I wasn't working for him anymore. And there's this restaurant bar that a lot of people from work used to go to. One day I was sitting at the bar and I was sitting with friends, and then they had left. I went up to him because my last review that he gave me, he usually gave me excellent reviews, above average reviews. But the last one he gave me was just a meets, just an average. And I thought I did an excellent job. And so I went up to him and I said, Steve, I just have one question for you. My last review, it was just a meets. Why did you give me that review? And he looked at me really smug and he said, you should have went out with me when you had a chance. And again, he had the last word. I felt like shit and I never saw him again. I seriously hope that if he still is alive, I know that he had a daughter, that he thinks about her, that he has changed. A lot of people don't change, but I hope for her sake that he's changed. Or at least I hope now that there's this Me Too movement that he thinks about how he treated me. I hope so, but I wouldn't put money on it. So that's my story, and I just wanted the men to know out there, if a woman doesn't want to go out with you, you should just leave it at that. And I think most men do, if they ask a woman out, especially a woman who works for you. But whether she does or she doesn't, you just have to accept it. Be strong, be a strong man, and understand that there is a lot of psychological and emotional damage that could happen when you're a person like Steve. And it's something that, it's not like I think about it all the time, but when the Me Too movement came out, I started remembering my days when I was being harassed and how much it hurt and how alone I felt. I'm just so happy that women finally have a voice, and this sort of thing, I don't think it's ever going to go away completely, but at least companies are taking it more seriously. That was not a good time in my life, so I really hope that this whole movement will teach people there's a person there, there's a human being there. That's my story. Thank you for watching. Bye.